After coordinating my schedule with Ellen and Virginia, we decided to spend our time alternating between learning about the otherworld and historical magic and customs. Knowing what kinds of creatures existed in the otherworld would only benefit me if I ever went there and had to defend myself. And knowing more about historical magic and customs would help me grow into a community I didn't know I was a part of for the first 13 years of my life. The first class was taught by Professor Boehmer, who somehow made learning about dangerous creatures dull and lifeless. He spoke with a slow, monotonous tone and frequently adjusted his spectacles on his face while he spoke. I wasn't quite sure why he didn't just use magic to improve his eyesight like I know some people did, but maybe some problems were too complex to be fixed, even with magic? Regardless, this was only the first class, and he spent most of the time warning us about not going into the other world, something we already knew. Hoping that future classes would get better, the next day we headed to Historical Magic and Customs, which was being taught by Professor Potsdam. She was the headmaster of the school, and yet she somehow seemed to run several classes for several year levels. I wasn't quite sure where she found the time, but perhaps she was like Hieronymous in more ways than one, keeping herself constantly busy to distract her from the loneliness of losing her family. Even still, I know these aren't thoughts that I should have around her, but at least with her cheerful, animated tone, it wasn't hard to pay attention. Today we're going to talk about the Aquarian Lab scandal, she tells us. A few people groan, but she just tisks as she wags a finger at us. Now, I know many magical-born students have grown up with this story, but it's important that our Wildseed peers are on the same page. Now that you have a basic grasp on your magic and have shown that you can follow our rules, it's time you understand why we ban technology and low world culture. She clears her throat before continuing. Before the era of cell phones and other modern technology, we coexisted quite peacefully with our non-magical peers. Of course, there were always a few bad apples, but it was easy to take care of the incident privately, and most people chalked up real magical events as hoaxes or miracles. She shrugs. Regardless, it allowed us to stay hidden in plain sight. However, as new technologies became more widely available, some American wizards felt that it was in the best interests of the community that we contribute to the industrial boom for the benefit of us all. They revealed our identity to a few select inventors who were deemed trustworthy, and they attempted to build machines that could store and manipulate mana electronically. She shakes her head. I know what you're thinking, and you're right. This would give anyone the ability to cast spells, whether they were magical born or not. People who didn't understand our rules or our culture could suddenly become as powerful as us. Understand that we put limitations on you for a reason. Unchecked, I don't think I need to remind you that too much magic is a dangerous thing. Everyone in the room just nods silently. It seems that nature felt the same way, she continues. During a test of one of the machines, something went terribly wrong. The result was worldwide magical disruption. Even wizards who had grown up around magic found it difficult to cast spells. The disruption created an enormous zone of devastation in the otherworld, something akin to a nuclear blast, for those wild seeds that might have studied something similar in their history books. The amount of damage that was done to the otherworld was immense. Many species were left on the edge of extinction, and others were forced to relocate and find new homes. It took the grace of the original founding families to help smooth over the tensions between us and the otherworld, and still allow us to draw our magic from there. Never forget where we draw our magic from. It filters into our world, yes, but the otherworld is the source of all our magic. If the otherworld would cease to exist, so would our abilities. You will learn many things about the other world in your other studies, but never forget to be grateful to it, for it provides you with your very means of existence. She fluffs out her hair behind her. Needless to say, since that time, any attempt to build magical machines is absolutely out of the question. Besides the moral implications of granting non-magical people the ability to use spells, it's a simple matter of respecting the realm in which we draw our power from. Now, are there any questions on this topic? Immediately, Ellen raises her hand while Virginia and I exchange uneasy glances. I can see Minnie in the far corner of the room, and even she looks concerned. Professor Potsdam, Ellen begins, I can understand why creating magical machines in this world would be dangerous, but what's to stop someone from building magical machines in the other world? It would be easier to do, and we could work alongside other world creatures and cooperate with them. Professor Potsdam just shakes her head. Oh heavens, that does not sound like a good idea at all. Whatever would the machines even be used for? Medicine, Ellen says immediately. Healing. Think about if someone was injured in the other world. If someone had weak green magic, they could use a small box filled with green magic to heal themselves. Or if their mana was low, they could have extra mana on hand. There are spells for what you have just described, Potsdam says with a shake of her head. There are trinkets with magical properties to boost magical ability in certain areas. There are ways to connect with white magic in order to tap into the flow to increase your mana pool. There is no need to complicate things further. Yes, but what if... Ellen starts, but she's quickly interrupted by a male voice. Sit down, Wild Seed, a boy in Toad Hall robes jeers. He's quickly joined in by a wolf I don't recognize. Yeah, if you don't like it, go back to where you came from. Settle down, Potsdam says, but she seems to be secretly relieved to have a reprieve from Ellen's questioning. While I understand your concerns, Miss Middleton, magic and technology do not mix. Historically, it has yielded poor results, and many otherworld creatures would take offense at the suggestion. Do you mean to be the cause of their offense? No. Ellen sulks as she crosses her arms over her chest and leans back in her chair. Splendid, Professor Potsdam says. Now, next class we'll begin talking about other things of interest. Now that you're third years, I'm sure you've started thinking about the direction of your future and what education you want to pursue, if you want to pursue it at all. Do you want to start working? And where do you want to start working? Here? In the other world? Perhaps you've already started dating and found someone you want to settle down with. We'll be discussing magical marriage ceremony customs as well. I can't help but blush as I notice a few students turn around in their chairs to look at me. I quickly glance down and pretend to be really invested in what I'm writing in my notebook. All right, then. Please take the rest of the afternoon to reflect on where we draw our magic from and be cognizant of how you use your abilities. Class dismissed. I get up quickly, intent on talking to Ellen, but Professor Potsdam gets to her first. Oh, Miss Middleton, do you have a quick moment? Ellen obediently goes over to her while Virginia drags me outside. Frustration is written all over her face. I told her not to talk about that, she says as she shakes her head. She kept me up all night talking about how it wasn't fair that we won't allow any technology. She doesn't seem to get it. Well, maybe now she will, I offer, but Virginia doesn't seem to want to let it go. You were awfully quiet back there, she points out. I thought you wanted to do research and that kind of stuff too. I want to help people with memory spell stuff, I say with a non-committal shrug. I guess we'll just have to cut making a magical MRI machine out of the equation. What's an MRI? Virginia starts, but is quickly cut off as someone comes up behind us. Mrs. Grabiner, do you have a moment? I can't help but grin as I feel Hieronymous's hot breath on my ear, and I see Virginia visibly sigh and roll her eyes as I let him drag me into a nearby classroom. He quickly shuts the door and, out of view of the door panel, pushes me up against the wall as he puts his lips over mine. A murmur against his lips, clearly not anticipating the intensity of the kiss. Someone had a good day today, I tease. I take it the freshmen were well behaved today. No more foolish than last year, he replies. I did that for your benefit. You seemed upset. I'm okay, I say. I think I'm going to have to take the week off when we start to get into the topic of magical wedding customs. Hieronymous rolls his eyes and I can't help but giggle. But it's fine. Honestly, I'm more worried about Ellen right now. Hieronymous purses his lips as he looks me over. She has been asking about mixing magic with technology again, hasn't she? There's something in his tone that I don't like. I mean, I know I've mentioned it here and there, but how do you know about it? Hieronymous seems to wrestle with himself for a moment. If you value your friendship with Miss Middleton, I would highly suggest that you dissuade her from talking about the topic further. I feel a knot twist in my stomach. Is she in trouble? Hieronymous makes a move for the door, and I quickly grab his arm. Hieronymous, you need to tell me. Is she in trouble? That depends on her, Hieronymous says simply before his lips pull back in a smirk. If you wish to find further clarification on the subject, I suggest you approach Miss Cochran with your concerns. You might find her response enlightening. This was a surprise. I knew Minnie was from a magical family now, but was she somehow involved in all of this too? Maybe her insistence on being class president and being involved in every school function was more than a perfectionist drive for achievement. Okay, I'll do that, I reply, only to have Hieronymous shake his head. Don't dwell on this, Tori, he insists. She is no longer your roommate. You can be there for her, as her friend, but now is the time where you have to choose who you associate yourself with going forward. Aligning yourself with those who harbor radical ideas, especially those of wild seed origin, may not be favorable to your future endeavors. I consider this a moment. Minnie's parents were both magical-born public servants in good standing. Virginia's parents were both at the pillar of the magical community's social scene. Even Jacob's family was well-connected and well-established. It was starting to seem that if you wanted to get anywhere in the magical world, you had to know people who knew people. Although it hardly seemed like it at the time, being married to Hieronymous might have opened doors for me that wouldn't have existed without him. She has no one else, I say quietly. She spent every holiday with Virginia's family ever since her freshman year. I can't just turn my back on her. She has turned her back on you for less, he reminds me, although his voice is gentle. Hopefully Miss Middleton will put her fanatical ideas to rest and we can leave this whole mess behind us. I just nod slowly, still trying to dispel the uneasy feeling that has nestled into my stomach. Hopefully. Now then, Hieronymous says as he straightens up, no more talk of this. Don't forget that you also have your own responsibilities concerning a young Mr. Callister. Freshman initiation is coming up, and you might want to use your social influence to choose his senior before they choose him. I let out a breath through my nostrils. If I was a freshman, I'd say that Big Steve or William would be up for the job, but I don't know how many of the seniors would be willing to take him on. I mean, except for Isabel, who was our hallmonder last year. I pause for a moment. But I think I know someone who can help.